Abraham was a man who knew the voice of God. He had followed that voice out of his homeland, away from everything he had ever known, journeying toward a future he could not yet see. God had made a covenant with him, a promise as vast and brilliant as the canopy of stars in the desert sky. He had promised Abraham that his descendants would be countless, a great nation through whom all the world would be blessed. For years, Abraham and his beloved wife Sarah waited. They grew old. The promise seemed impossible. Yet, in their old age, God gave them a son, Isaac. He was the child of laughter, the living, breathing proof of God's faithfulness. Isaac was not just a son, he was the embodiment of the promise itself, the single precious thread from which the great nation would be woven. Abraham cherished Isaac with a love that filled every corner of his heart. He watched him grow from a baby into a young boy, each day a new miracle, a fresh reminder of God's goodness. Isaac was his only son, the son of his old age, the heir to everything God had sworn. The bond between them was profound, a testament to years of patient waiting and joyful fulfillment. Every hope for the future, every whispered prayer of gratitude was centered on this boy. The promise lived in Isaac's eyes, in his youthful energy, and in the sound of his voice calling out to his father. For Abraham, Isaac was the world, the tangible evidence of a divine pledge that had finally come to pass, a treasure beyond any earthly measure. Then one day, the voice that had promised so much returned with a command that shattered the peace of Abraham's world.
Take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on a mountain I will show you.
The words must have felt like a physical blow, a chilling wind extinguishing the warm fire of the promise. How could the God of life and blessing ask for this? How could the source of the promise demand the destruction of the very one through whom it was to be fulfilled? It was a command that stood in stark opposition to everything Abraham had come to know about God's character and his loving plan. This was the ultimate test, a moment that would define the very essence of faith. It was a question posed not in words, but in an unthinkable directive. Was Abraham's trust in the giver greater than his love for the gift? Did he believe that God, even in this incomprehensible darkness, was still good? Did he have faith that the one who could bring life from a barren womb could also bring life from the ashes of a sacrifice? The command was absolute, the reasoning hidden. All Abraham was left with was a choice: to obey the voice he had always trusted or to cling to the son he so dearly loved. The quiet stillness of the night must have been filled with the weight of this impossible decision. Before the sun had even begun to cast its first pale light across the horizon, Abraham rose. No hesitation recorded, no argument with God, no desperate plea for an alternative. There was only a quiet, resolute action. He moved with a purpose that belied the storm raging within his soul. He saddled his donkey. He called 2 of his young servants. He split the wood for the burnt offering. Each swing of the axe echoed the splintering of his own heart. The journey began in silence for 3 long days. The small party traveled toward the distant mountains of Moriah. What thoughts must have filled Abraham's mind? Each step was a step closer to the unthinkable. Isaac walking beside him, sharing a piece of bread, pointing out a strange rock, pointing out a passing bird. Every normal father-son interaction laced with profound sorrow. The servants saw only their master, a man of God, on his way to worship. They could not see the crushing weight he carried. This was not a journey of angry resignation, but one of solemn, trusting obedience. Abraham's silence speaks volumes. He placed his confusion, his pain, and his questions into the hands of God. He did not understand the why, but he held fast to the who. He had walked with God for decades, learning to trust his character even when commands were bewildering. On the third day, Abraham lifted his eyes and saw the place in the distance. He turned to his servants, his voice steady despite the tremor in his heart. "Stay here with the donkey. The boy and I will go over there and worship, and then we will come back to you." Not words of deception, but of profound faith. In the face of God's command to sacrifice his son, Abraham declared they would both return, holding on to a hope that defied logic, trusting that God's promise would somehow, impossibly, still prevail. As Abraham and Isaac left the servants behind, the final stage of the journey became intensely personal. The world shrank to just the two of them, a father, a son, ascending the mountain of God. Isaac, strong and youthful, carried the wood for the offering on his shoulders. It was a heavy load, but he carried it willingly, eager to help his father in this act of worship. Abraham carried the fire, the knife, the tools of sacrifice, feeling cold and alien in his hands. The silence between them was different now, heavier with unspoken anticipation as they climbed higher. The quiet was finally broken by the trusting, innocent voice of the boy.
"Yes, my son?"
The fire, the wood are here. But where is the lamb for the burnt offering?
It was the question Abraham had been dreading, born not of suspicion, but of simple faith. Abraham's response is one of the most powerful declarations of faith in all of Scripture. He looked at his son, the one he was commanded to sacrifice, and spoke words of incredible hope.
"God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son."
He did not know how. He could not see the way. All he knew was the character of the God who had always been faithful. This was not a clever evasion, but a raw, honest confession of desperate trust. He was staking everything, his son, his future, the promise itself, on the belief that God would intervene. So they went on together. Isaac trusted and asked no more. When they finally reached the summit, the time for walking was over. The time for action had come. With methodical determination, Abraham began to build. He gathered stones. He constructed an altar. He arranged the wood Isaac had carried, preparing the place of sacrifice. With tenderness that must have been excruciating, Abraham bound his son Isaac. The scriptures record no struggle. Isaac submitted, trusting his father's words. He lifted the child of the promise and laid him upon the altar. Abraham reached out his hand. His fingers closed around the knife. He raised the blade. He was willing to give back to God the most precious gift he had ever received, holding nothing back. Just as the knife was about to fall, just as the ultimate act of obedience was about to be completed, a voice pierced the stillness of the mountain. It was not the voice of God this time, but that of his messenger. "Abraham! Abraham! Do not lay a hand on the boy. Do not do anything to him." The sound stopped everything. The sacrifice was not to be completed. "Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son." The test was over. Abraham's faith had been proven genuine. He lifted his eyes, and there, caught in a thicket by its horns, was a ram. It was a provision, appearing at the precise moment of need. The animal was the substitute, the answer to Isaac's innocent question, the fulfillment of Abraham's faithful prophecy. He untied his son. Joy and tenderness overflowed. He offered the ram in place of Isaac. The smoke rose as gratitude and restored hope. In honor of this miracle, Abraham named that place Yahweh Yireh, the Lord will provide. And for generations to come, they would say, "On the mountain of the Lord it will be provided." God is a God who provides. The story of Abraham and Isaac on Mount Moriah is more than a dramatic test. It is a timeless lesson in trust. Abraham's journey teaches us that faith is not the absence of questions or fear, but the choice to obey even when we are filled with them. He did not understand God's plan. The command felt cruel and contradictory. Yet he chose to trust the character of God over the confusion of the circumstances. Faith was not a blind leap into the dark, but a determined walk with the one who is light. believing dawn would come. This narrative paints a portrait of God's mercy and provision. While the test was severe, its purpose was not to inflict pain, but to reveal Abraham's heart and God's heart. God intervened. He stopped the sacrifice. He provided a substitute. He is not a deity who delights in suffering, but a loving Father who provides a way out. Yahweh Yireh, the place name, becomes a promise. In our moments of greatest need, on our mountains of trial, the Lord will see and the Lord will provide. This story invites quiet reflection. It asks us to consider the altars in our lives, places where we surrender what's most precious: a dream, a relationship, a sense of control, our understanding of how things should be. Like Abraham, we face commands we do not comprehend, walking paths shrouded in uncertainty. So ask, is our trust in the giver greater than our attachment to the gift? Are we willing to place our deepest loves and hopes in his hands? Ultimately, the story ends with quiet, grounded hope. Abraham and Isaac walk back down together, their bond forged stronger. God reaffirms his promise and blesses Abraham for his obedience. The message today is encouraging. When we face hard choices, remember Abraham's words, God will provide. Not a promise of ease, but an unshakable hope. We do not walk alone. He will provide in his perfect time. Genesis 22, the faith of Abraham. Yahweh Yireh. On the mountain of the Lord it will be provided.